The best of the morning to you. This is Monday with Friday, preparing you for a better week ahead. Some years ago, I had a speaking engagement at the 𝐀𝐧𝐨𝐭𝐡𝐞 University in Yokohama, Japan. This tie, bearing the university's insignia, is a gift from the president. Something else happened that makes me remember that visit. As my Japanese friend Sayuri was driving me back to my lodging, we approached a toll booth. Before us were two other cars, but something was wrong. The driver of the car at the front of the line was apparently having some kind of trouble. Maybe the vehicle's transmitter failed, or the driver was out of credit or cash. Whatever it was, the car was standing before us for a period longer than usual. The traffic at the other booths were moving along, but ours stood still. After about 2 minutes, I looked at Sayuri and she was calm and cool. I looked behind me, and there were cars lined up behind us. None of them immediately behind, cut out of our lane to head for the other lanes. Then something happened that has remained etched in my mind as an example of the best of humanity. A toll booth attendant went to see what the matter was. Leaving her booth, she smiled and bowed to me and Sayuri. Passing the car immediately ahead of us, she bowed to those occupants too. Arriving at the problem car at the gate, she bowed to those occupants. A brief conversation with the driver appeared not to solve the problem, so she began returning to her booth to sort it out. Leaving the car in distress, she bowed once again to the occupants. She bowed also to the occupants of the car immediately ahead of us and smiled and bowed to me and Sayuri as she passed us and returned to her booth. She stayed in there for maybe about 40 seconds while we all waited. As she finished whatever troubleshooting she performed in her booth, she started to make her way back to the car, holding up the now considerable line of traffic in our lane, while all the other lanes were sailing through. She smiled and bowed to us, to the folks ahead of us, and to the car at the gate. After a brief exchange that solved the problem, she bowed to them and made her way back to her booth. She bowed to the folks in the car ahead of us, and as we began to roll forward, she bowed and smiled at us one last time. During the whole delay that lasted for about 7 minutes, not one horn was tooted or heard. Sayuri displayed not one hint of impatience, and a perfect stranger acknowledged other strangers 12 times with humanity, grace, and courtesy. I started to reflect on my Western ways. I knew that had a delay like that occurred at a toll booth in New York City or Portmore, Jamaica, there would be horns blaring and vehicles attempting to reverse or swerve from the delayed lane into others, and evil looks knifed at us as they passed by. But it was the behavior of the toll booth attendant that struck me the most. She was the epitome of service, humility, respect, and calm. She recognized that she was not dealing with cars, trucks, and buses. She was dealing with people, and she recognized people. Shortly after I returned home to my Midwest American suburb, I was mowing my lawn right near the sidewalk. A woman was coming up, walking her dog. I kept my eye on her as she approached, waiting for her to make eye contact with me so as to acknowledge her and greet her. Her dog made eye contact with me. She never did. Although I nodded as she passed, a real greeting between two humans never happened. In the church where I was pastoring at that time, I was a racial minority. Some folks would walk past me all the time without even noticing or greeting me. I grew up in a village where there were many races, cultures, and religions. I was taught to greet everyone I met, to acknowledge the presence of another human life. We humans must get back to a place where we see one another, a place South Africans call Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because we are. It means I see me only because I see you. This week, let's start acknowledging, valuing, and seeing one another once again. I am Michael Friday, and your week just got better. I'll see you again next week. Happy Monday, all the way to Friday.